Welcome to the show. We've got a great show today. Last video I mentioned that this week I was going to make a bevel grinding jig. I was going for a simple design, and as many of you have probably already seen, there are a lot of homemade jigs where a piece of angle iron is used and you drill a hole in the angle iron and then you use a tap and die to thread that hole so you can change the height of that to adjust the angle of the bevel. Now my method is going to be a little bit different because I don't actually have the tools to make a threaded hole. Now these tools are not particularly expensive, and if you'd prefer to go that route, I would encourage you to run to the hardware store and make that purchase. But with that said, if you have a welder, there's an easier way to do this. And since I'll be welding anyway, I'm actually going to put this nut a little bit out beyond the edge of the angle iron. And what that'll do is it'll move the adjustment screw a little further out from the fulcrum point, which should make it a little easier to get fine adjustments on the angle of the bevel. Once I have the welding done, I just needed to clean up the bottom of this a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect, because when you're using it, this edge will actually be up and away from the grinding table. But I don't want it to be kind of too gnarly underneath there. If I'm doing a very small bevel, the welding bead there could actually make contact with the table and interfere. And really, that's about it. Now all I need to do is take it over to the grinder, test it out. Oh yeah, I still have that crappy little grinder table. Well, that's definitely not going to work. Okay, let me fix that problem real quick, and then we'll test the bevel jig. Again, the welder comes in handy here, but imagine if you didn't have a welder, you could actually drill and tap this plate, put in some flush-fitting screws, and basically do the same thing that I did here. But I like the way this fits, and I like that I can take it on and off very easily. You can see how this adjustment works. For greater angles, you just turn the screw further through the nut, and for lesser angles, you back it out. Now I'm kind of trying an experiment here. I can imagine that as the whole assembly is vibrating and I'm dragging it back and forth across the table, that bolt might have a tendency to kind of work its way back up, and so I could lose the angle of the bevel. I've seen a couple of ways to deal with this. The way that I'm going to try, just to put in one of these nuts that has a nylon locking ring inside of it. It's a little bit hard to turn into place, but once you get it set, that bolt isn't going anywhere. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I did a review of a machete, and I determined that that machete was not a reliable tool, mainly because the handle came loose after a few days of using it. And last week, I used a piece of that machete to make an 8-inch chef's knife. Well, there was just about enough left of that machete for me to make one more little knife. I don't know that I'll necessarily make a knife, but at least I'll cut out a rough outline so I can demonstrate the bevel jig. As you can see, part of the original bevel from the machete has made it into this piece that I'm going to be putting a new bevel on. And in the past, when I've done this type of thing by hand, this would be very, very challenging. In fact, I would say that doing a bevel at all by hand is actually quite challenging. It's been one of the most difficult aspects of knife making to learn. But especially when it comes to something like this, where you already have this sort of partial grind, and it's a hollow grind, and I'm trying to put a flat grind on this, and you get in there and you start to try to feel that grind as you're pulling the blade across the belt. It can really be a headache. But as you'll see here in a minute, it goes much more smoothly with this jig. And I should also point out, this is the first time I've actually used a jig like this. And of course there's room for improvement, but it's surprising how well this bevel turned out. So there it is, pretty clean bevel. You can see I kind of made a mistake at the beginning and started grinding further down than I wanted to, but you know, that's why I'm using scrap for the first couple of times that I test this thing. But yeah, I mean, there it is. It's very decent, very straight, consistent bevel. And I should be able to use this with most of the knives I'm going to be making. There may be some that'll be too long for this size of a jig, but I guess I'll cross that bridge when I get there. So with that, I'll say thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, throw me a like. Subscribe to the channel. I'm here at least a couple times a week, sometimes more. And I think the next video, look for it in a day or two. I think I will take this practice knife and finish it out, because I kind of have a design in mind that this might be perfect for. So watch for that video again, probably in a day or two. And until then, Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.